Hey, what is going on? Cantorn here, you guys are wins, and welcome back to another episode of Unreal Talkament, the show where I talk about everything Arena FPS related that has happened in the week on Linux. Literally nothing happened this week, so, somebody blew up a rock. If you get that reference, I love you. But I'm just going to talk about Vulkan, the API set to change OpenGL. So we've been using OpenGL on Linux and Mac for a long time. Vulkan is what I think is going to bring Linux up on par with Windows in terms of gaming and in terms of support. Because quite a lot of the reason that people don't make Linux games is because the DirectX API is used because there's no point in making it for Mac or Linux on a separate API, and OpenGL isn't quite as good as DirectX. Vulkan, however, is better than DirectX, as has been proven by quite a few things. The new Doom 2016 runs it. The old Doom, someone made it run with Vulkan. Someone made it run Quake and Quake 3 Arena the other week, and this is why I'm talking about it. So this is what has happened. Quite a few games are using it. So Dota 2, Rust, Grid, Autosport. So all these games that are on Linux are Vulkanized, I suppose would be the term. And there's a few other games like Ark. Some of them do have Linux ports, and some of them are just straight up Vulkan. So some of them are DirectX and then Vulkan for Linux, and some of them are both done in Vulkan. You can run the Vulkan version of Doom on Windows, obviously it's Windows only, but it runs better on Wine than on Windows in some tests. I don't generally trust them. I've only had a few instances of stuff. Guild Wars 2 has run better in Wine for me than it did on Windows. So what is the big fuss about Vulkan? Well, it's better than DirectX. How so? Because it's more platformy. It fills up more platforms, so it does Windows and Linux. I can't see anything about Mac, but I'm pretty sure I've seen Mac games running on Vulkan. The other problem with Macs, I think we've basically forgotten about Macs, because I've been saying for a little while there's no point in making a game for a Mac. It might have the better market share, but it doesn't have any. There's no gaming. The new MacBook Pro, however, is sort of, it can do gaming. Still overpriced, but at least it's not underpowered. So I think that could push a bit towards it, but I really think that people should just go for Linux for gaming, because Mac generally you're not gaming on it. And if you want to, you can install Linux for free and do that. So that really is just something I think you might as well make a Linux game for if you have the ability, just because, yeah, anyone can use it. So we have quite a few Vulkan things, so let's talk about the Quake 3 Vulkanized, which is the reason I heard about this. So Artyom Korenik made Quake 3 Arena Kenny Edition with Vulkan support. So it's Quake 3 with Vulkan. It took 450 hours roughly of work, 2 weeks to implement the rendering, and a month to make the picture the same. The rendering was tested in CPMA, so I might use it when I get my RX 580, which was used in the testing. So the statistics, 3,200 lines of code, mostly added to the Vulkan header and CPP file. Vulkan is obviously made in C++. Everything is. It's either C or C++. C++ is much easier to write games specifically in than C. So we definitely have got this sort of idea of Vulkan being a more powerful API than DirectX, and certainly more powerful than OpenGL, because obviously if OpenGL was close to DirectX, you might as well use OpenGL to make your game, and you'd be able to port it much easier to Linux and Mac and hit higher market share. So I think it's quite cool that we are getting some games ported over, and I think Vulkan is going to be a big step forward in the ideas of Linux, and I hope that the Unreal Engine can push a bit more Vulkan-y, because I think if Unreal Engine, I believe it has Linux support, not Linux support, so the Unreal Engine does have Vulkan support, you just have to set it up yourself. So this could really push into the different versions. The only problem is drivers. Older PCs can't run it, so if you do something for Vulkan, you straight up have to say, no, you can't run it on this. However, I think that's slightly better than what Microsoft does with Windows 10 and locking DirectX 12 behind that. You can't use DirectX 12 games unless you have Windows 10. I think that's a lot better that you have to, because effectively it means you get to say, we're making our game, this is the lowest graphics card that supports this Vulkan API, so you can't use it. This is a hard and fast, if it runs on this graphics card, we're good. It's a hard and fast lock off for everything. So I think that's just a bit of talking about me and Vulkan and how I think it's going. I hope that more engines implement it, and hopefully I can manage to edit all of this random stuff down into something that's actually kind of usable. Hopefully there is something next week. Damn the exams that are making this a difficult time for me. I will keep doing this weekly just because I sort of like the schedule for it. So I hope you had a good week, and I will see you next time.